Prometheus stole fire from the gods and gave it to the human race. Why Prometheus did this, I have no idea. It was probably the dumbest thing Prometheus could have done. I mean, for God's sakes, we were too busy trying to figure out how to ferment shit so we could get... Okay, you know what? I'm tangenting. Fire is one of those things that mankind has attempted to tame, and in small amounts we have, but it has helped give rise to civilization. That and irrigation. The plow is really important. Okay, you know what? It's one of the things contributing to the advancement of civilization. But today, on another gear show, we're going to talk about how you can keep fire in your pocket or your bag. So when things go wrong, you have a way to survive. You have a way to take Prometheus's gift and keep away the dark. That's right, today we're looking at fire, and we're looking at items that you can keep in a bug-out bag or a get-home bag to help to make getting a fire going easier. There have been do-it-yourself things you could do, like wax coating matches or Vaseline and cotton balls. So you don't necessarily have to go with any of the things that I'm going to show you today. Bit by a mosquito. But I'm going to show you a few things that I'm starting to put in some of my bags, just as a convenience item. So what we're going to do is I'll kind of go through them, and we'll take it outside, and I'll show you what each of these look like getting lit up by a ferro rod as opposed to a lighter, which, while I think everybody should carry some kind of lighter, you know, even if it's a little, you know, disposable lighter, you know, everybody should have a way of generating fire. It's just a useful thing to have. So what we're going to cover in no particular order are UCO storm matches, two variations of impregnated cotton. There's these, which I got with the Stanford Bug Out supplement, and then I'll come back around to these in a minute. There's also the 4-aught steel wool and the 9-volt battery. Magnesium capsules with powdered magnesium in them. Yeah, okay. So understand when I show you these next couple of products, they are all from the same company. I did order them on my own. This was not for any kind of review purposes. I paid for this out of my own pocket. We're going to start off with, as I said, the Procamptek fire plugs, which is a very, very saturated cotton, I think I want to say. Cotton plugs, yeah. So they are... they're kind of the ones I'm really looking forward to. They just look more impressive than the ones I got out of the Stanford B.O.S.S kit. Also, we're going to be taking a look at the fire strip roll, which is basically, I want to say it's kind of like almost impregnated cotton paper type stuff. It's not a linen. It's not like money they used to, or the material they used to print money on. It's much thinner. We're also going to be looking at the Procamptek fat rope stick. Boom, there's that. Yeah, there's that. And the Procamptek waxwood stick. Again, all the Procamptek products I got with my own money, so there's no exchange of, you know, review for product or anything like that. So there's that. So let's go ahead and go to the board, and we'll see how everything looks, and then we'll come back to the table and I'll give you my last thoughts. Okay, here I'm starting off with the UCO storm matches. I probably picked these up at like Walmart or something. My biggest complaint, I mean, they're storm matches. My biggest complaint is the threads on the cap here. They're a little fiddly, and I would imagine that if it were cold out, it'd be a little more awkward to get that going. But it's a storm match. I mean, it lights, it strikes, it burns. For a match, it burns a long time. So if you've got a good bird's nest going or something, you should be fine. But this is an easy method that I would recommend saving. You know, if you're needing to do this, start with a ferro rod. Because if it gets to the point where you're, breaking down, if you're having problems with fine motor skills, matches or lighters are easy. So yeah, start with a ferro rod. Okay, so this is the small impregnated cotton that I got from I want to say I got it from the Stanford Outdoor Supply bug out fire module.
Yeah, so the idea with these is to fluff them up. I don't know if that'll be enough, but we'll give it a try.
I did end up talking over some of this. I don't know what I was thinking about. I just kind of was talking. So yeah.
Yeah, there are aircraft flying over.
I did ramp up the footage because some of this stuff just burned and burned and burned. So rather than making you sit through all that, I just fast forwarded basically.
It is still going. Yeah.
Okay, so the fire strip roll. This is one of those Procamptek products. And you can see you just peel some out, tear a little bit off. Basically work it to break down the rigidity so it's feels like used fabric almost. You can probably see the difference there. Tear a little bit so you've got the fine threads exposed. And boom. Now this is my first time working with a lot of these things, so kind of dialing in exactly how to light these fires get a little fiddly. While this ended up working rather well and burning for quite a while, weight to material wise, getting it started, as you see how it took me a few seconds. And once again, ramping the footage because while watching big fires could be fun, watching little fires is probably kind of boring. So, but yes, it did burn considerably well. It was kind of a breezy day out, so I had to kind of be cautious of that. Yeah, so the fire roll worked fairly well. Okay, the fire starter plugs. These ended up, I think, being my favorites. Yeah, everybody who's watching this is probably looking at me cut through this stuff with my knife and like, what are you doing? But this was a lot more impregnated than the other cotton plug that I showed you. It's a lot more densely packed with flammable combustible material. So it kind of took me a minute to dial in how to fluff this up. And in all honesty, I ended up kind of tearing it apart when I did it. That ended up not being a horrible problem, but it was a little awkward to get it started because I had not prepped the material properly. This was no fault of the material. This was definitely operator error.
Clearly had not fluffed this one enough. So.
And of course I've got my giant ass hot dog fingers.
Yeah. Yep, see, that was me. I hadn't fluffed it enough.
It did actually take on the first spark, watching this footage in Rewind.
Now this is much slower burning than the other one.
And again, slightly ramped up the speed. Again, I think this ended up being my favorite out of all of the material to use. Even after squishing it, this is one thing I did like, even after squishing the material to put out the fire, it did just reignite no problem. So yeah, the fire plugs by Procamptek, I think, ultimately is my recommendation. But there are other methods still. Okay. This is the fat rope stick. Oh, yeah, put that out. This is the fat rope stick, which older fat rope sticks from this company, if I remember seeing them correctly. Oh, excuse me, waxwood stick. Don't mind me. Older versions were squared off, so you immediately had a corner you could shave material off of, but this has to be processed a little bit. So there's me beating on my SE knife with my Leatherman container, or my Leatherman case rather.
Incidentally, I always do it with the last inch or so of the blade.
Yeah, try to... What I was saying there is use the back end of your blade. That way you're not really damaging the cutting edge.
Small yield kind of stuff. So this breeze is not doing me any favors.
This seems to be the least amount of material for the most amount of work. But there's no real prep once you get the material off.
Definitely getting to be summer in Georgia. Mosquitoes are back with a vengeance. Oh, there it goes.
Lights fairly easily because it is essentially pre-fluffed as you shave it off of the stick. Ultimately, this did burn... I feel it burned quicker than most of the other contemporary materials. You can see it's mostly gone there. Okay, now is the fat rope stick. The fat rope stick is a little odd because it's super fine threads, it feels. Well, not super fine. It's basically, it looks like threaded material that's been impregnated.
I know I'm doing this wrong, but I really don't care.
What I'm saying there is I think I'm doing this wrong, but whatever. As you shave it off, it basically kind of crumbles. Again, it has a very similar consistency to the waxwood stick. Basically, all I'm doing here is kind of repiling it so there's a little more air and a little more breathability in the material.
Had it going for a hot second.
Obviously, I am not a Ferro Rod pro. I'm still getting used to this stuff. I mean, for gosh sakes, I have probably 6 Zippos and who knows how many Bic lighters. Oh yeah, more ramping, because this stuff burned significantly long.
Legible.
Alright, here's everybody's favorite, the magnesium capsule. I'm actually ramping me getting into it because the capsules had kind of degraded a little, so they were very hard plastic to get into. As you see, I ended up having to cut it to get out the magnesium powder. I don't really like this one for fire starting.
This is magnesium powder. And if any of you have ever worked on magnesium brakes, you know what's about to happen.
And that's why I don't like it. It does burn hot, it does burn very efficiently, but it burns very fast. So unless you are prepped to go, you know, and you've got that magnesium powder integrated into your kindling, yeah, you're just wasting your time.
We'll take reaction.
And then ultimately my least favorite was the steel wool and 9-volt battery. Now, I To me, the grass that I picked up seemed drier than it was, but I was obviously wrong. Here you can kind of see the reaction. The voltage of the 9-volt battery is essentially eating away at the steel in the steel wool. And you can flame that up with a little bit of a breeze. So there you have it. Just a quick breeze through of some of the easy ways of starting a fire with basically just sparks. Based on what you saw, obviously the steel wool, partially user error. I want to try that again when I've got when I'm sitting down trying to get a fire going. Was my least favorite. It just seemed to be problematic. The magnesium capsules, way too fast in my opinion. The UCO storm matches, there's nothing wrong with them if you've got your bird's nest built already. A bird's nest is your loose tinder ball to light up first. It's all the really thin and fluffy material. Both of these burned really well. I mean, they lasted a while. So these will probably end up being my go-to. Because this was like $10 for 50. And as you saw, I cut a chunk down because I didn't need the whole thing. So that's always an option. The fat rope stick and the waxwood stick, there's nothing wrong with these. They're just not, I think they're just not optimal for how I do things. There's nothing wrong with them at all. It just seems to me that the fire plugs are quicker. So as an impromptu Procamptek review, my recommendation is go with these, but remember that they are wax infused or impregnated, I guess. Infused makes it sound like you light them up and they smell good. This is very densely impregnated cotton, so there's a lot of, I'm presuming, paraffin wax in there. My suggestion, put them in a really durable small Ziploc bag of some kind, because if it gets warm, I haven't tested this yet, but if these melt, it could get messy. So we don't want that. But yeah, make sure you have the ability to start a fire. I think one of the episodes we're going to do in the near future will be me trying to go out and getting a full fire going, and I may opt to just use this as a demonstration. If you got anything out of this video, be sure to, comment, do the YouTube thing, like, share, comment, subscribe. My appreciation to my subscribers out there. I do have an updated EDC video in the pipeline. I've got a few things stacked ahead of it. One of them being plate carrier. Because I'm trying to lose some weight, so I'm going to start doing the workouts with weight and whatnot. Anyway, I am attempting to give you quality over quantity. The whole AGS every day in April thing was just a shambles, and I was just cranking stuff out to do it. So for that, I apologize. I'd rather give you quality, maybe on a more stretched out timeline than just try to crank stuff out to crank stuff out. So again, have the ability to do fire, whether you have a disposable lighter or a Zippo or a ferro rod and some starter material. Make sure that's something that's in your emergency bag. Go out, buy a 5-pack of these and just keep one in your pocket. On a slightly different topic, I'll leave you with this. These are great social engineering tools. I'll do a social engineering episode later in the summer. But for now, I'm Mike. This has been another Gear Show. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.